Hey, what's up, everybody? Isaac here, Civil Engineering Academy. Thanks for joining me on another podcast episode. Appreciate you liking and subscribing and all that jazz. It always helps out. Today, I bring an awesome guest on. She took the FE exam in one blow, took the PE exam in one blow, got them all done and knocked out, and has a fascinating story. Her name is Seirra Patrick. She lives in the Michigan area, Detroit area, and actually was going to become a medical student, but realized she has an engineering brain, figured out she wanted to head the civil engineering route, finished school, worked in the construction industry in some construction companies. FE and PE wasn't on the mind. And so it took a little bit. And now she's working for a design firm, and they encouraged her to get her PE license, which means she had to study for the FE and PE exam. So she took those exams, got them done in one shot. She did take our review courses at civilengineeringacademy.com to help her out, which we're always excited about. We want to help people on their journey to earn their license. But just her story of getting those two knocked out fairly close together is a fascinating journey in itself, because some people would rank the PE harder than the FE, and some people rank the FE harder than the PE. I wanted to get her opinion on which one was harder, since she took them both using our courses and knocked them both out. So without further ado, let me get to my interview with Seirra. I think you're really going to enjoy this one, especially if you're preparing for the FE or PE exam. And if you need help, definitely check us out at civilengineeringacademy.com. I hope you enjoy these interviews with past students that have recently taken their FE or PE. I know there's always something to learn. Everyone's got a different journey to get there. And as long as you're crossing the finish line, doesn't matter how fast you do it. So that's kind of the story. And we're just excited to help people get there. Anyway, I'll shut up. Let me get to my interview with Seirra. It's coming up right after this. You're going to enjoy this. We'll see you in a minute. All right, we're rocking and rolling. Seirra, thanks for joining me today on the Civil Engineering Academy podcast. I'm excited to talk to you. You're a recent passer of the FE and PE exam in one shot, and you took our courses, which is amazing. So thank you for jumping on and to share your experience with us.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
So before we get started, why don't we dive into a little bit about your background so our audience knows kind of, what has been your struggle to pass FEPE? Why did you choose this field of engineering in the first place? What's your work history, and kind of tell us your own background of how you got here.
Sure. So when I first got to college, I was actually pre-med, wanted to be an emergency room doctor because I was under the impression at 17 years old that you go to school for 8 years and then you're a doctor making doctor money. So once I found out about residency, I knew I wanted to stay within the STEM field. So I was looking into other options, what I could get a 4-year degree and still use my knowledge of science and math. I've always been good at science and math. So living in the Detroit area, there's a big market for historical restoration. Of course, it's a very old city, so the utilities are very old. There's a lot of water around here, so there's a lot of bridges. So kind of all of those things are what steered me in the direction of civil engineering once I realized that being a doctor wasn't going to get me my goals that I wanted to do. So then right out of college, I ended up going the construction route initially. I actually worked for one of the big railroad companies that a lot of people know around the area for a few years. And that was a very unique and fun experience. I got to see a lot of heavy construction going on there. There's a lot of interdisciplinary work that I got to be a part of. And then from there, I actually went to a telecommunications construction company, which again, very interesting, working kind of with other utilities and seeing utilities constructed. Then from there, I went to a design firm where I did mostly water design, but a little bit of sanitary, a little bit of site plan reviews for stormwater drainage. And now I'm working doing mostly stormwater design. So I've kind of been, utilities and railroad construction and design is my background.
All that.
Yeah.
Well, let's back up a little bit. I'd love to know, so you were going this medical route, and then you switched into civil engineering. Was that why you were at school that you made that switch?
It was like my freshman year of college. So I hadn't really even started any of the major specific courses by the time I made that decision.
And I know you mentioned your like this stuff in Detroit, this bridges and water and all the stuff in there, but what pointed you first to the civil engineering degree? Was there a professor? Was there a counselor? Like, how did you even like? Why did you want to head that way?
Honestly, it was a friend. It was a friend who I had only had just met at college that first year, and he, told me you're good at math, and he was an actuary major. Um,
Oh man, those guys are special.
right, yes, way more exams than we have to take. And he's like, look into engineering. You've got an engineering brain, so to speak. The way I would problem solve, and so I looked into it, and that's how I got here.
Okay, well that's awesome. Well, I'm glad you got here. So let's uh let's go backwards too a little bit. So in terms of like the FE exam, when you were in school, did you have to take that to graduate? Was it a requirement? What was the status of that?
No, I didn't. And it came up a few times in my like my senior level classes that people would mention it in passing, but I didn't get a lot of professors or what do you call them, counselors,
Counselors or
advisors.
something.
Yeah,
But
advisors. Yeah, I didn't have many people bring it up much. They said shortly after graduation was when I would hear a lot of people recommend taking it, but it wasn't a requirement for my degree. And then I ended up not even taking it until 7 years after I graduated, when I started the first design job that I had after the construction jobs were done.
so you didn't really it wasn't on your radar when you're working construction jobs, but you're out in the field, like you're learning great stuff hands on. It
Exactly.
wasn't until you went into a design firm that they were like, "Hey, we want you to work towards
Right.
getting like your PE, and you need to get this
Yeah.
SE done first."
And they paid for me to take the course, gave me the day off and the exam. So I was like, all right, I'll do it, and I committed.
That's hard. So I have to ask this question. In your opinion, what was the harder exam? Because you passed both. Was the FE harder than the PE, or was the PE harder than the FE?
That's a hard question to answer. I
The $1,000,000 question everyone asks me.
And it really depends, I think, on the person. I guess I'll just say the PE for me, just because of the length. That is 8 hours is a long time to take an exam. And I'm typically a pretty fast test taker, like nothing crazy or special, but I only had 20 minutes left at the end of that exam. I was there all day. Yeah,
It is, yeah, your brain is fried after both exams, but
very much so.
8 hours. And the FE used to be 8 hours, and
Really
yeah, it dropped down to six. So they,
generous.
and past it was 8 hours. So you get fried twice.
Yeah.
Ultra hard.
Mhm.
Well, that's awesome. So, in your study journeys, you're working in a design firm. Did you end up taking, remind us what you took for your PE for that depth section?
Water resources.
Water resources.
Yes.
And you feel like that was a good fit for the work you were doing in the design firm? Because some people question, like, which depth exam should I take? But you felt like that was right up your alley.
Yeah, absolutely. There were many times when I was doing practice exams, and I it could go either one of two ways. I would do the practice problems, and then it would be something that I used in work. And then there was a couple times where my boss asked me about doing some sort of calculations, like something that we don't do a lot of the time, because I was studying. And then I looked back at the course material, and there were example problems of what he wanted me to do. There were like some septic calculations I needed to do, where some course content helped me with that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I could help. That's nice. So, yeah, I have to ask. So you found us for the FE and you used us for the PE, but how did you even find us in the first place? Why did you end up going with Civil Engineering Academy?
One of my coworkers who had recently taken, I don't remember if it was the PE or the FE, but one or the two, they had just passed when I was thinking about taking it and signing up, and they used Civil Engineering Academy and recommended it to me because they really liked the like go at your own pace format instead of I think they had tried a traditional like classroom setting one, and it really wasn't working for them. So then after they didn't pass on their first attempt with that course, then they tried Civil Engineering Academy and recommended it.
Yeah, well, I'm noticing that a lot of people do end up finding us if they're repeat takers. So it's great that you can knock it out the first time, but a lot of people do find us after they've taken it once or twice in the real world. So
That's
I'm glad
great.
you found us. So, was there anything about the course that you particularly liked, or why you would recommend it to a friend?
I like that you guys have like the sample schedules, and I like the content of the video practice problems and the video lectures. So I like that there's a good amount of variety so that you can, see the same equations, the same types of questions you're going to be using, like with little tweaks to it. Where a lot of the time, like other things that I was looking at, you get your problem. Yes, it's beneficial, but when something changes just a little bit, it's not always intuitive in engineering. So I like that there's like a broad range of example problems within the video lectures and the practice exams, the practice problems, the um, video practice problems too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
A lot of people question like how they approach practice exams. Some people run through them like practice problems. What would be your advice to someone preparing for the PE exam or FE exam on practice exams? How should they approach those?
I would recommend to definitely at least once or twice, like you guys recommend, and I personally did not do, was to actually sit and do an entire one, make sure your timing is right so that you'll, finish within a decent time prior to exam day. And I never did that. I, would study for whatever length of time, 2 to 4 hours, just depending on what I had, and never actually sat for a practice exam. I will say though, I did a lot of practice problems. I did every single practice problem that was in your course. I did a lot of practice problems in the books that you recommend to go along with the course. I did practice problems from the YouTube videos, which there is a lot of overlap with what's in the course. But yeah, I would recommend you sit down and take a full test at least once in your studies.
Yeah, that makes sense. Did you have any surprises on your exam that you were like, man, I wish I was better prepared for that, or wasn't expecting that, or something like that that you would share?
Um, I mean, just the theory problems. There's so many things that they could ask, and I wouldn't say that the FE or the PE exam really had a lot of like I know on some of these licensing exams they'll make it sound so like all the questions are kind of right, but you have to pick the one that's the most right, and they don't do that a lot, or at least in my opinion. But there's just such a broad range of things they can ask you on those theory questions. So I think probably most of what I did get wrong on the exam was the theory questions that I was like, this sounds the best. I don't know. It's kind of broad though.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know a lot of people do struggle with that. What advice would you give to someone to try to help prepare them for theory? Because even in our course, we give you some bonus theory questions. We try to prepare you to like wrap your mind around preparing for theory and even maybe how to approach that. But what in your opinion would be like what would you tell somebody to try how they would prepare for theory questions?
I think one thing would be even like with the practice problems is just make sure you understand why you're doing what you're doing, where these equations are coming from, if there are some derivations of the equation within the what's the book that you use with all the equations in it?
Handbook.
Yes, with it, the PE reference handbook. Just understanding the equations can go a long way in like helping you figure out theory problem or like make the connection between the theory problems versus looking at a problem and just knowing how to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And even in our course, they really preached like, hey, if you were the instructor, how would you word this differently? Or if the numerator or denominator changed the value, how does that affect the answer? Do you
Yeah,
understand the equation really well? Like what if something in there changed? Because that's
so
where they kind of pull that stuff.
right, that's a good tip. That reminded me of another tip too, is to explain it to somebody else. Like, see if you
Oh
can
yeah.
explain this to somebody else, especially a like somebody who's not an engineer, or somebody who isn't studying for this exam, and see if you can actually get them to understand it too.
Oh yeah, that's so good. I one other thing that comes up often, and I'm curious if you did this, but did you do any sort of have a study journal or take notes as you were going through the coursework or practice problems yourself? Like, hey, I sucked at that. I'm gonna write this down so I remember. Like, how did you deal with that, or did you just like solve problems and kind of keep them on hand? I don't know. What was your approach to that?
So I studied for the PE exam for a total of like 6.5 months. And the first 2 months, I was just going through lectures, doing just the practice. I would go through the lectures and take notes on anything that was new to me or sounded like it could be a problem. And then all of the practice problems I noted down. And I even color coded because I learned that in the way that it can help. And so I've just done it ever since. I think it was like my junior year of college. So every time I take notes now, it's always color coded.
Yeah, I need to get a copy of that then.
All right, yeah, I've got
Then
so the notebooks full of all my notes, and then after I made it through all the lectures and like the practice problems is when I just started hitting practice problems only for the last 4.5 months or whatever it was. So I did a combination of both, and I filled up two of those huge notebooks while I was studying.
it's a lot of problems. Well, that's good. I mean, that's where your head needs to be in studying this stuff. On the exam itself, I know you took a lot of resources, but and we talked about surprises. One of the surprises that sometimes people want to be prepared for is like alternative item type questions. Did you feel like they threw a bunch of those at you, or very few of them at you, or any at all?
You mean like not multiple choice?
Yeah, not multiple choice. The fill in the
Sorry.
blanks, the
Yes.
select all corrects. Yeah.
I did get a couple of those, and I got a couple of those on the FE as well. Um, Not many, I'd say definitely under 10. Um, but yes, it does throw you off because a lot of the times the answer choices that you get are rounded like to the nearest thousandth anyway. So I'm always like it does trip you up a little bit to like have to give an exact answer when all the other questions are like rounded by 1,000 or whatever.
Yeah. No, that's very true. And I mean, I feel like I'm hitting on the PE so much, and I love the PE, but obviously the FE is like the foundation to getting your PE, and many people. You said the PE was harder for you. Many people say that the FE is harder for them. So I'm just curious if we could touch on that a little bit. Like, how much prep time did you put in for your FE prep before your PE, and did you roll right into your PE studies right after the FE? Like, how did you manage that?
So for the FE, I studied for around 180 hours, and I did the same study method. I think I only studied for 3 months total for that one.
Which was a great time. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that was good for me. And then I mean, it was definitely tough because it's so much broader. There's so many more topics to have to cover. So yeah, I by no means is it. I don't know. Yeah, that question
Yeah,
did
an
fit
easy one.
harder. Right.
It's
There's
very
all
math heavy, you're going back to college coursework, so math,
right.
statistics, and all that jazz. So a lot of people are like, I can't remember, that stuff I did. That was a while ago. But
Yeah.
but
Um,
I guess the bigger question I have is like, so you put in a bunch of time for FE. Did you roll that into your studies for PE, or was there a big gap between those two exams?
I didn't, and I really should. I thought about it, and I just couldn't do it. But there ended up being a 2-year gap, so
Oh, okay.
yeah, shorter than most people with the 4-year requirement. So I had been working under a PE for 2 years, took the FE, and then I ended up taking the PE. I think it was exactly a month before I would have been eligible with 4 years of experience plus, passing the exams. So I had that 2-year gap in between, which I wouldn't recommend it if people are in a position to do the PE right after the FE and just get it all over with. Then I would go back and do that if I could.
Okay. Did you take a gap there because it was like you were burned out on it, or was it just like work life, like you were busy, or what do you think? I just
Kind
need a
of.
break from all this study time. Like, that's crazy.
Right. So I did both of them in the summer. So I did the FE exam in July and I did the PE exam in August. And that worked out well for me. In my industry, or at least in Michigan construction industry, it seems to be like the fall and winter kind of gets busy like right before the end of the year. So it would have been tough, I think, for me to like keep studying through the holidays if I had tried to take the PE exam in the fall or winter. Um, but I think I still would give it a shot if I could do it over again.
Yeah,
um,
that's great.
but that's really all it was for me. It's just busy season around here is in the fall.
Well, would you have any other tips for somebody that came to you and said, "Hey, I'm about to take my PE"? What tips would you share with me?
Hmm. Keep to it, make a schedule and stick to it. I feel like, especially for somebody, which most people who are taking the PE specifically, they've been out of school for a few years, and it can be really easy to, just take the weekend off because you're traveling and then have that turn into 3 days and 4 days or 5 days off. So really try to stick to your schedule. I know some people will take a day off, like they'll skip Fridays while they're studying or something like that, which didn't really work for me. I studied every single day that I could. I still tried to have a social life and have a good balance. But if I said, I'm going out of town this weekend, I'm not studying Friday, Saturday, Sunday. As soon as Monday rolls around, I just had to force myself to at least review notes or get back into it somehow because it can be very easy to turn a couple days off into a week off.
Oh yeah. So what was your support system like at home or at work in terms of taking this? And I ask that because some people feel like a tremendous amount of pressure at work when more people know that they're taking their FE or PE. Like there's a certain amount of pressure that comes there, but also like what's home life like? Did you have support there? And like how did you balance that?
So work was pretty good. So the company I work for is pretty small now. Our engineering team is a total of 5 people.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so there's a lot of landscape architects that I work with, and then engineering kind of works more as support for them. And two have their PE, my two bosses, and they were pretty good about, and they said that they try to make sure that the workload isn't getting, too heavy right ahead of time. And there were a couple times when surprise deadlines came up and they were able to shift it to somebody else so that I wasn't, trying to work a lot of overtime in the weeks coming up to my exam. So my support system at work was really great for the PE. And at home, I actually live alone, so I didn't have a support system to lean on. But I work from home now.
Yeah.
So
So,
yeah,
like,
just
parents or brother, sister, anyone else in this civil, like, or engineering world in general, like, did anybody know what you were going through? Or was it like, I have no idea.
not really, not really, outside of professional contacts.
That's amazing. Well, good job.
Thank you.
That's great. Well, a fascinating journey. I appreciate everything you've been doing. I'm excited for your career, like earning the PE, the springboard to like the rest of your career. Would you have any advice? We need more women in the industry. It's a very male dominated industry. What advice would you give to other women that are just considering civil engineering or even going through these exams or working in the industry? What advice would you give to them?
Believe in yourself and just be confident in your abilities. I know it is intimidating. It can be intimidating in the STEM fields. I know from a young age, unfortunately, a lot of girls are they're told that boys are better at math or boys are good at math. And unfortunately, I think that can carry into later life. So just be confident in your abilities. If you're great at math, own it and you stick up for yourself.
Yep. And if you're all at a table, you are there because you're an engineer. So
Yeah,
they're there
exactly.
because you're an engineer. Like you are an engineer. So,
Exactly.
your merits and what you've done qualifies you to speak up and do what you need to do. So, That's great advice. Well, awesome. Any other reasons why you would recommend civil engineering to another person considering different courses out there?
I just really like the way that it's set up. I like that it's self-paced. And there's a lot of great content in there. The diverse content is probably my favorite thing, which you asked. The yeah, use a broad range of practice problems and practice exams that are really helpful. It's all just packaged very concisely, which I like.
I love it. Well, yeah, we definitely want to spread the word about it. We love people going through, helping them on the journey to become a professional engineer. It's what we're all about. And we're so happy we could help you. My last question for you is, take me through the day you got your results.
Oh my gosh. So, like I said, I mostly work from home, but that day I did have to be in the office because it was the intern's last day with us. So I made the decision to wait until I got home to open the email because the email comes through. It's like right at noon, I think, on the Wednesday following for everybody or something like that, something to that effect. Um, Waited until I got home, and I already planned dinner. Either way it went, I was gonna either have myself a celebratory dinner or
You already had it
well,
booked?
yeah, I may wanted to make myself feel better, and I opened it up, logged in, and it was just right on the screen, the little pass icon, and I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. Seriously, I felt lighter after I saw that and knew that I could be done because when I walked out of the exam that day and the whole week leading up to getting my results, I really had no idea. I was not feeling confident about it going either direction.
How'd that meal taste after you found out you passed?
Oh, so much. I'm curious. It was like gold. I loved it.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, those days when you get the results and you definitely feel the weight off of your shoulders when you get the green pass. Back when I took it, it was a letter that came in the mail, and it could be really good or really bad, and they would always send them. They only offered it twice a year, but if you took it in the fall, that letter would come like right before Christmas. So it could be like really great Christmas present or really bad. And I had a couple bad ones, but we got through it.
All right.
Well, Seirra, this has been awesome. I appreciate everything you've done, and your experience and sharing, your experience with us about our courses, the FE and the PE, but also about your work experience and really for women in the industry. So any last second tips on anything else?
Just nothing I can think of other than just keep at it. It can be really discouraging at times, but it's so worth it to get it done.
Yes, it is. All right, Seirra, thank you for doing this and looking forward to chatting with you in the future.
Thank you, Isaac.
See ya.
See ya.